Hello and welcome to the Vanguard Delight. We're talking about gratitude today and kind of how to have gratitude when you're either not in the mood, don't want to have gratitude, not feeling gratitude. Because the worst thing to do is to have to do gratitude when you ain't feeling it. Oh, it sucks. But let me tell you a story because I want you to get a special secret from this video. And this story will help illustrate it. And it flashes back kind of just before I was going to get that big epiphany about the technology I created, vibration shifts. If you know my story, you'll know a little bit about that. So it's probably on the cusp of when I was going to have that epiphany. And I'm in a small town or outside a small town called Dutch John in a place called Flaming Gorge, which was amazingly beautiful, like our beautiful place here, but it had this really cool, like it was this lake and it had this large, like kind of piece of rock that was coming out of the lake. We used to call it the roast beef because it looked like this big piece of roast beef. And I'll put a picture of it here so you can see it. It's pretty awesome. So I'm there and it's in the middle of the pandemic. I'm way out in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, hey, what a great place to do trauma work. Oh my gosh, trauma work is so, it's brutal. It's brutal. So, but anyways, I was kind of continuing on my process, pulling out this trauma while building this new technology, vibration shift, but it hadn't happened yet. You know, I was just doing the process, starting to build the building pieces, but I didn't know. I didn't know what was on the other side. I just was like kind of led to like, okay, maybe this will help pull out a little bit of pain, help move this forward a little bit, right? So I'm kind of in that process. And I was probably been 3 weeks in, and I was probably doing 6 to 10 of these per day, which is like, I mean, they take about an hour, maybe about an hour each, and they're brutally draining. So I was luckily in a very beautiful natural environment. Plus I had been like boondocking, been off grid for the 6 months before that. So I was just kind of getting filled up with nature to kind of let me really do this like really, really deep work and just try to get as many as I could in per day with that feeling that there's something on the other side of it. There's something. So lo and behold, about three and a half weeks in, I'm coming up, I think, on my sixth one. It's just like, oh, getting through that, taking a break, checking out the beautiful lake. And then I started noticing this might be working. Something's up, right? Like it was almost like that little thing of like, hey, wait a second, this might be working. Because I've always had did a bunch of therapy, tons of personal development. I've already about 14 years of energy work in there, like going hardcore, and always kind of like, you clear stuff and have amazing results. It would come back the next day, if you know my DID story, or even working with other people, you'd see them move forward, have a big jump forward, but then there'd be that other thing that kind of like, boom, stop them, right? So they have all this to use and go for it, and it's like, oh, but they still got stopped. But I was noticing, I'm like, hey, wait a second. I'm feeling different on the inside. Like I'm feeling like all that stuff, like that one little boogeyman, that feeling of like, oh, it's got me. I know it's going to show up and it's going to get me. I was kind of like noticing something was different there, right? I think I did another day, did 6 of them, came through, and I really started feeling, I'm like, hey, wait a second, something's changed. And that's when I realized that my dreams had changed. Wasn't having those constant nightmares. And that's when I knew of like, oh my gosh, this is huge. This is the thing. This is going to heal me. This is going to change my life. But what I also got soon after that of realizing of like, wow, this was, because if you knew the story, like this was a lot of pain and I was going to win, but it felt like it was too much pain for just me winning. And that's when, like, I had that communication with Source, and Source was like, you can bring this out to the world and they can use your warp gates. That's what I started calling them. Well, that's what the name became, of like, they could use all that technology that I had built. And it wasn't just for me, it was going to be for them. And I could, like, if I could just compile it and make it and package it for other people, they could get the benefit too. And that was like so inspiring. It's like I now had a purpose. I was like, had a purpose, I had a mission. And I was going into it to save myself from pain, like get out of trauma. But by doing that, there was a side benefit that was growing of where now I had a technology that could help free a lot of people. So there's like a 2-for-1. Like, and I didn't know any of this going in. Like, I didn't know that, 1, I would make it to the other side, that this would work, and 2, that now I would have a lifelong mission on the other side of it. So I give that story to illustrate there's 2 things into this video for you to get out of this next exercise. And if you don't do it, you won't get it. You won't get the benefit of feeling that gratitude, but you also won't get that secret benefit that comes with it too. So hopefully that encourages you to do this exercise. So what are we going to do? So we're going to kind of condition ourselves to experience this gratitude with a little bit of hopping. So I'm going to reposition the camera so you can possibly see this. So 1 second. All right, so we're jumping on our next part. Hopefully you can see this. The sun just went over the hill and I lost a little bit of light. But hopefully you can see this. So what we're going to do is to first, I hope you can see me. I'm not sure if you can see my feet here, but basically, if you can do, is you're going to go on 1 foot and hop, right? Simple as that, you know, and it'll probably hop like 10 times and then hop another foot 10 times. And if you have like knee issues or back issues and you can't do it, then see if you can, if you really unbalanced, and make sure you have a wall or something to grab onto and just be on 1 foot and feel like what it would like to hop, right? We're going to imagine that. And we're going to do a little bit of hopping, right? Let's get a little hopping in and actually do it and kind of see it. And now imagine if that's how you had to walk. How much harder is that than walking if you have 2 legs? And you can do this if you happen to be in a wheelchair and you got 2 arms, then tie 1 arm behind your back and try to move your wheelchair with just 1 arm, and how much harder that is. So what we're doing is taking something that we have, taking away for a second, small time, to really kind of get in touch with the benefit that we have with that. Like, so we're going to do that hopping, right? You kind of see, you can kind of really get of like, especially if you can't hop at all, it's like it hurts your knee and it's tough, and it's like you really get of like, wow, you know, you might be able to walk easy enough, but like, wow, that's really easy. But then hopping, especially with my right leg, because I've had 3 knee surgeries, is a lot harder, right? And that's to start cultivating that gratitude of being able to walk, or in a wheelchair and having 2 arms to move the wheelchair. And you can keep progressing that depending on where you're at. But for the people, we got 2 legs, kind of goes off in the background of how much benefit and how much we can be grateful when we get in touch with the 2 legs. And if you don't do the hopping exercise, it's kind of grind on you, because you won't really get the benefit of feeling that, of like, oh wow, wait a second, hopping, yeah, this is real slow. I'm gonna get really tired, right? And this is, you know, that's not as fun. That's not as easy as walking. Really think it's the easy, right? So I'm gonna keep doing it. You can do it with me, right? You really gotta do the hopping, because like the story I told you about, you gotta do the work to get the second benefit. And this is where the second benefit. So you've done a little bit of hopping, then I want you to walk. And this is me walking backwards. Try hopping backwards, it's hard too. But walking, and you can walk slow. I really want you to notice how much easier that is. How much less effort to just walk. Even slow, especially if you couldn't hop. Imagine if you had to, and how hard that would be. But then notice how much easier it is just walking, right? And really take a moment to be grateful how much easier it is. Because you might be feeling like, oh, I've got lots of going on in my life, it's hard. But if you do that hopping and you walk, you can be grateful of like, wow, I can be grateful that's easier. And you might get grateful of like, oh my gosh, how much I can do because I can walk. But even if you can't go there, you can go where you're just like, wow, that walking, I can walk slow, I can walk fast. Hopping is kind of like, once you hop, that's all you got. You can't do a big hop. You might be able, it's gonna be a lot harder. But walking is like, you can take a slow step, right? You take a little step this way. Imagine if you have to hop up something or up a hill, how harder that would be. But then you can get in touch with just how much simpler life is because you can walk, right? And start building that gratitude, like, oh, I could walk. Life is actually a lot simpler because of that. And your second bonus, if you did the hopping and the walking, you really got in touch with like, wow, that's so much easier, is that in your unconscious mind, right, from growing up, and especially if you've been through traumatic stuff, there's kind of like these death programs where your unconscious feels that I cannot show that to you. I cannot bring it to your conscious mind because it would cause you to die, right? And possibly when it was created, it was too traumatic, too much for you to be able to take on, right? So your unconscious keeps it away from you, keeps it to where you're not going to see that, but you're affected by that. And it's kind of like having these death programs is kind of like hopping. But like if you've always hopped, right, and you didn't know about walking, you know, you just hop. You might be like, my life's hard, things aren't working, right? I'm not where I want to be. But you wouldn't know hopping was the problem because you've always hopped. You didn't know there's another way. And this is the second bonus. If you did that walk or that hopping, and then you walked and you notice, wow, oh my gosh, walking is so much easier. Well, imagine your life if you didn't have those death programs in your unconscious mind that you don't know about it. Because having them is like hopping. You're hopping through your life, right? You're grinding, you're hopping. But if you start addressing those, you're going to start walking through your life. And if you can walk, you can probably then start running. But if you're hopping, you're just stuck. And you don't know you're hopping, but you're hopping. I just wanted to get that little moment of like, when you do the hop and you start walking, of how, man, walking is so much easier than hopping. And if you get rid of those death programs, your life will be so much easier than hopping. You'll be able to start walking and then running. And this is like, your unconscious mind is wiring what's coming at you, what's coming into your life. And to remove those, it's going to be that transition. Because I mean, think how much you don't do if you hopped. If you have to hop everywhere, there's a lot of things you wouldn't do because you're like, well, I'm hopping. I can't do those things. Why would I do those things? I hop. But if you didn't know, because you didn't know about walking. So when you remove those death programs, now you're going to be able to start walking. What opens up? I mean, running opens up, stairs open up, like your whole world opens up. And that's what happens when you start taking care of these unconscious death programs, which in the course I have, Freedom Through Safety, really goes, it uses that warp gate technology, which I told you that story of it starting to birth, where you can use your unconscious mind to heal what's in your unconscious mind. So these death programs, your unconscious is like, I'm not going to tell you about them. You get close to them, you start feeling suicidal. And your unconscious knows it's like, oh, try to back him away from this, try to distract him, let's get him away from that unconscious program or that death program, because the conscious mind is not ready for it. But the unconscious can start working on those, because now it's still out of your conscious mind, but it's getting healed. And your unconscious wants this to be healed, but there's no point trying to force you to heal something, which then causes you to jump off a cliff. Unconscious is smart, wise, and knows that's not a good solution. By using your unconscious to heal your unconscious, you can start opening up these death programs and start transitioning from hopping through your life through walking. So I just want to give you that hope of like, wherever you may be, you probably haven't taken care of these death programs. And so whatever you're up against, it can radically change. Because just imagine if you've been hopping your whole life and you were able to start walking, how much easier would that, just that process of getting around, allow you to take on in your life? How much more could you take on in your life if you removed something that was making just walking, just getting around so much harder? So I want to leave you with that, possible hope, that faith of like, oh, wait a second, there's a lot more going on. And when you start tapping into it, your life can radically change. But then also, if you got two legs and you don't have to hop anywhere, you can really get in touch to be grateful for that. Or be grateful that walking does make it easier than hopping. That walking makes it easier to hop in. And you can really get into that. And it's not about, oh, you got to get all the gratefuls. No, you just got to have a grateful state and just hop around a bit. You know, if you need to hop around for a minute and then walking, you can be as grateful like, God, I'm grateful I'm not hopping, that I do get to walk. So hopefully that helps. Until we talk again, have a blessed day or a blessed night.